Today we're going to be burning a wooden bowl. We're going to turn and burn. Several years ago, probably 10 years ago, when I first started turning, I made this ash bowl and I scorched it and then used liming wax. And today we're going to see if I can remember how to use that technique so I can show it to you. So we're going to turn and burn. Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. I'm Mike Peace Woodturning, and I'm here to show you tips, tricks, and techniques and projects to help you become a better wood turner. So if that's what you're interested in, click on the link below and please subscribe. Let's get started. This technique requires a ring diffuse wood bowl, something like ash, oak, chestnut, and there's some others, but I find ash to be the very best. So I've got a rough turn bowl. Let me get it for you. Okay, I went out and looked for some old bowls that I'd turned, and this one was several years old. I've cut away the date, but it was probably 6 or 7 years old. But I've taken it down, and I believe it's running true. Let's just check real quick. Yes, it's running true. We're not going to be turning on it. We're going to be burning on it. So we're going to just a few preliminary things. Let's go ahead and get our for the time being, our tool rest out of the way. Common sense indicates if you're going to be dealing with fire in your shop, several things. First of all, you ought to have a fire extinguisher handy. This is common sense. And clean up around your area. You know, clean off most of the shavings that you're going to get. I think I'm going to go ahead and remove this rubber pad out of the way. Take my bench brush and just kind of clean up. Now we're going to use propane, fuel propane. You don't want to use MAP gas because it's too hot, and we're going to turn this at a very slow speed. So let's just play with it a little bit, and we're going to scorch it from the bottom to the top over the rim. We'll clean up the rim later. All right, let's get started. So I'm going to use my handy dandy propane torch and lighter. Want to keep it away from any wires I've got. Let's keep it out of the way and push these wires back just a little bit. Okay. All right. Here we go. We're going to keep it moving, and we're going to turn it real slow. Matter of fact, I think I'll probably turn it by hand as we burn it a little bit. We're going to do this several times. It doesn't need to be sanded to the highest level because you're going to burn away, but you do want to get rid of the tool marks. But sanding is not a big issue. I sanded it up to at least 150. It's going to take a little while. It'll flame up a little bit, but generally it's gonna quit. It'll flare out pretty quick. A little bit later, toward the end of this video, I'll show you some other projects where I've used this technique, but where I've also used a similar technique with the liming wax by just using dye, and I'll talk about some of the differences later. So let's just concentrate on burning away. So what we're doing is burning away that soft grain on those rings, that early growth sapwood. I don't know if I can get this hotter. Whoa, got to pay attention to what I'm doing or I'll burn it up. That's okay. That's what we're doing. We're turning and burning. Rather than turning it at a low speed, I think turning it by hand is definitely your best technique. You want a fairly thick wall bowl. You don't want to turn this too thin because as it gets hot, there's more of a potential for it cracking. But you want a dried bowl. You don't want a green bowl. You want one that's already gone oval on you and moved. You also want to be turning over the rim. Don't start at the rim, but turn toward the rim so you can come off the rim with your flame. We're going to turn away that rim to get it nice and clean. We're not going to scorch the inside of this. We're going to treat that with liming wax so it'll be white. We're also not going to burn the very bottom because we want people to be able to see that it was in fact a bowl of wood. Keeping it moving gives it a chance to cool down a little bit between scorching. Now I'm beginning to get a little better feel for the distance away. I'm about 4 to 5 inches away, where the color of the flame kind of disappears, and it appears to be the hottest part of the flame, which is what I want. Now, for some of you, this may be the effect you're going for, and you could stop right here, but it's not the effect I'm going for. I'm going for a dark effect. You know, I don't give you all those usual disclaimers about this is entertainment only and do this at your own risk and all that happy horse pucky. You know, we're the generation who grew up where you're 6 years old, you went off to first grade, you had a pocket knife, and you didn't have your hovering parents telling, don't do this, don't do that, and looking over your shoulder all the time. And as a result, we got a few nicks and scrapes and cuts and bruises, but, you know, I think we were better for it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? You know, when you come to using those analogies with a younger generation, like dealing with grain and cutting and sharpening a pencil with a pocket knife, they kind of look at you like, what? What's a pocket knife? It's a different world. Of course, we have those same issues with digital information with our grandkids, and they're saying, what, Beepaw, you don't know how to do that? Let me show you. Now I'm going to look for the places that haven't been scorched and go back and hit them pretty heavy. Keep the flame moving. You know, I think as wood turners, a lot of us enjoy fixing things, and I know most of us enjoy a bargain. I put a post on my community tab on my home page. You might check that out, but where I describe fixing my wonky Powermatic switch after 12 years. They tend to need replacement, and what a bargain. I found one site wanted $121 for the entire switch with 3 components, and I was able to find just the component I needed and had it shipped from Amazon for $8 1/4, and didn't take much to put it on. I'm back in business. Okay, I could probably burn it more, but we're going to call that good for the time being. The next thing we need to talk about is our next step. We're going to use a green Scotch-Brite type of abrasive pad, and we're going to burnish this. Before we do that, before we have any touching on the bowl, I'm going to put on some nitrile gloves, because this stuff can make a real mess, and when it gets on your hands, it's hard to clean up. And I'm going to take off this stupid, not stupid, but this face shield, because I really don't need it for what we're doing. I just keep bumping into that overhead microphone, so I'm going to put on some nitrile gloves in case I do have to touch the bowl, which I probably will. The other thing to keep in mind is if you've got a very, very slow speed, I put this thing in low torque mode, bowl turning mode, so I can turn the speed down. It's only going 75 RPMs. So now, as it's going around, I'm just going to start burnishing it and cleaning off that surface soot. You can see the soot is coming off. I don't know how many bowls you get out of one pad. This thing will have to be thrown away. I've used it for getting rid of frizzies on texturing, but I've got more, so when I finish this project, this one will go in the trash. All right, let's turn it off and look at it. Now it's got this nice uniform kind of burnished type of look to it. I put my hands on the inside of the bowl, and whoo, it's hot. So you do want to keep moving around. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to let it cool down every now and then if you get it too hot, so you don't get premature cracking. I've got a little fault line here that's liable to crack. It's not quite through the rim, so maybe not. And this bowl, you know, I left it at 10% thickness years ago, so it's fairly thick. And of course, when I trued it up, it took away a little bit. And when we true up the inside, it'll take up some, but it's only the outside we're going to be burning here. Okay, I'm kind of liking the look of that burnished look. Now we're ready to go back and do it again, because we want this thing black. Man, who doesn't like to play with fire? Okay, back to hand turning it with my left hand. And we probably will have to do this operation probably 3 times. You want to try to get a uniform burn on it as much as possible. Just look for the light spaces and Fire them up. And this cleans the soot out of those sap areas that got burned the most. And that's what we want, because we want to look for, when we finish, that's different from dyeing it, is that we have differences in elevation of the grain, and that those growth rings that were the early year rings, that were the softest wood, will burn away, and they'll get a little bit lower. And that'll have a very nice effect when we go to using liming wax. But it's got a semi, kind of a satin sheen to it, but I think I've got a pretty good burn. I'm pretty happy with this. And I think when we put a final finish on it, it'll really pop. I'm going to let this cool down for just a minute before we come back and give it our final burn. Okay, you didn't need to see me scorch this a third time, but I went ahead and did it. So now we're going to take this off. Pull the tailstock out of the way. We're going to turn it around, put it in our chuck. And now, I've got it remounted, so now we're going to clean up the face and even true that up, because it, when it had dried, it had turned kind of football shaped. Then we're going to go ahead and clean up the inside of the bowl blank. I think I can go ahead and take these these gloves off. They're kind of a mess. Okay, I'm using a 5/8 inch bowl gouge. I want to get this thing cutting on close to center, and we're just going to true that up. I've got to be very careful with this. I'm probably going to use a shear scrape after I get it close in position, because I don't want to get those edges raggedy. Alright, so we're just going to ease it up. Actually, I think I'm going to cut in. I'm just going to cut in from the rim. I can get the speed up just a little bit. Now I'm going to drop the handle. Come across with a shear scrape. See what that's doing to the rim. Okay, not looking too ragged. I think I'm going to cut away some of it from the inside. And so far I'm getting a nice clean rim. I'm happy with that. It's not trued up yet, but let's keep going. You can see we're having to come in at a very extreme angle, because this is the bevel. The bevel's got to come in at 90 degrees, otherwise it's going to skate. Some of y'all experience that, so I'm bracing it with my hand. And I'm coming out, just getting a little bit of this area that's off. And then as I bite in, I'm going to open it up. Ride that bevel. It's tough while it's bouncing because it's out of true. Alright, that's helped. It's trued up quite a bit. Very carefully give myself a shoulder. Let's see what's going on here. Okay, got a nice clean edge, but I still haven't brought it into true. I got a little further to go. I think I'm going to switch to a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, something a little bit smaller. Now I'm bracing it with my thumb as I make that entry cut parallel. And I'm going to slightly undercut the rim. slowing the feed rate down as I get near the bottom because the surface area is moving slower. Okay, so I've put those rings right here with a pencil, so I'm going to get between those rings, starting with the bottom. Actually, I'm going to start out here first. I can't believe how well that ash is cut. It's just, I'm real pleased with that. I've got just a little bit of a ripple here, and I may take care of that with a scraper. So I've got a great big thick scraper. This thing's got to be more than a ½ inch thick, but it's a negative rake, so it's just a finishing tool. So I'm just going to touch up on those tool marks, those ripples. Angle electric drill from Woodturner's Wonders. I've got a little bit of tear out on the rim here, so I'm using a fairly coarse grit, 80 grit, believe it or not. It happens. I'm going to turn this at a fairly low speed, below 300, and I'm just going to clean up that rim a little bit. And soften the rim. Maybe get the very bottom, maybe the whole edge one time. I guess one thing I ought to say and make clear is I go through sanding, because I've talked so much about wet sanding and using an abrasive paste. I'm not doing that on the inside of this bowl, and the reason why is I don't want to clog up any of these pores, because we're going to line these pores with liming wax I show you in a moment. So we're not using any lubricant. We're just using plain old dusty get it done sanding paper. I had some tool marks here. I got up to the 200 grit, and I realized I wasn't getting rid of those tool marks, so I had to step back down from a 3-inch pad to a 2-inch pad and really give it a workout with a coarser grit to get rid of those tool marks up near the rim, and then start back up from 80, 120, 180. It's really important with that liming wax that you have a perfectly smooth surface and you don't have any torn grain, you don't have any tool marks, you don't have any sanding marks. Now, before we apply liming wax, we need to blow it out. We want to clean those pores, and that's on both sides. After blowing it out, I wipe it down with a little denatured alcohol, and then I shake up my can of spray lacquer and spray very lightly. I'm going to spray on two coats. Don't want to clog the pores, but I do want to seal some of the grain. Okay, I put 2 coats of spray lacquer on here. Now I'm going to take it off to do the back side, but it's probably easier to do the front side with it on the lathe. I'm going to put on protective gloves. Yes, I have a supply of these from Harbor Freight that I'm not saving for the coronavirus. I have them in my shop, but hey, they're there if I need them. Okay, these hands save wood. Okay, so I'm going to use some liming wax. I'm using some white embellishing paste wax from the tiny little remnants that were left to me by house guest Jeff Horning of the Walnut Log. It's got a little bit of some type of pearlescence in it, so it ought to be real pretty. The other option for liming wax is brie wax. You can get that at most any of your wood turning vendors, or order it off Amazon. You get a can of this and it's going to last you a long time. It'll probably be in your estate. Okay, now I'm putting on gloves because this is a petroleum-based product. So it's probably you shouldn't mix your fingers in it. I'm switching to an old t-shirt rag. I'm no longer recommending these shotgun cleaning bores. I took them off my Amazon shop. They were convenient, but they tended to leave a lot of lint. So we're going to put some of this on here, and we're just going to grab up a good bit, and I'm going to put it on liberally. They say you should never use a finish on a that you're experimenting with on your first real piece, but I'm doing that anyway, using Jeff's embellishing paste. And I think maybe I'll use his pearlescence on the inside, but I think I'm going to go for the whiter liming wax on the outside. Outside. And probably we should let it dry a bit. Let's take this off, and now we're going to do the black, and this is the fun, I think the fun part, because it's just amazing what it'll do for this. Just for an example, I've had this can of liming wax from about the first year I started turning. And you can see I got most of a can left. So it's not something you use a lot. I probably ought to use it more often for other projects, but you know, for whatever reason I haven't done that. So I'm just going to really put this stuff on there thick. Get it all over. Really rub it in those grain pores. Okay, now the trick's going to be getting most of this off. That's why you put those. It's very important to put on those 2 coats of lacquer in order to seal this a little bit, especially the surface area, not down in where we've actually burned into that summer grain. So we're going to I'm just really rubbing it in and cleaning off the excess as I move this rag around a little bit. Alright, now it's kind of cloudy looking. Doesn't look quite like the way we want it to be. That's okay. Let me show you how we're going to handle that. Let's see, like a can of wax before I forget. Okay, now we're going to get some a bag of 4/0 steel wool, or I think wire wool, as they may call it overseas. And we're going to take this, and we're going to just buff it up a little bit. That'll burnish it, and it'll take care of that excess that's on the top surface. And keep moving it around. Wow. I think I have a dry cough and a fever. Just kidding. Summer allergies down here in Georgia. The pollen is just landing everywhere, and it's making a mess. And I did not brush the inside. Let me do that a little bit. And all it does is kind of pickle the inside. It just highlights it a little bit. You don't see dramatic changes on the inside like you do against the black, but it does give it a very nice effect and does tend to make that grain a bit more prominent. Over. And I believe when we put a little Minwax antique oil, it will also help clean the surface a little bit, but is not as likely to affect the pigmentation that's down in the grain pores. Okay, I put on a vacuum chuck with a soft edge. Because this is wax, I don't believe it's going to get pulled in by the vacuum, certainly not from the outside, which is the most important part. And we're just going to go ahead and turn off that bottom tenon and I'm going to take a little bit of it off before I use the vacuum chuck. I'm not gonna show all this. Makes the video too long. If you're interested in vacuum chucking, I've got a separate video on that, and I'll leave that in a link at the end. Well, it was a fun project. I hope you enjoyed it. It's nice to have different embellishing techniques in your toolbox. I'll have a link to here on the how to use a vacuum chuck. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Hit the like button. Y'all stay safe. Come on back here.